Welcome to the Digital Forester podcast, where we speak to forestry leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of forestry. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Forester podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alex Deslauriers. He's the co-founder and CEO of FireSwarm Solutions. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Kevin. Thank you for having me on a Monday morning.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. I think timely as well. But first off, I always love to ask people, where am I reaching you from?
Beautiful Squamish, BC, just outside of Vancouver here on the Sea to Sky.
Nice, nice. So for those who have skied in Whistler, you will have Whistler Blackcomb. You will have gone through Squamish at some point in time and on the way up. Beautiful country up there. So we were just chatting at the start. You know, it's busy time for everyone. I just came back from vacation out in Prince Edward Island out east. The grass was yellow. It was the first time with the family where we had zero campfires at the start of the week. There is a province-wide fire ban, and this guy went out and spent a lot of money on wood, my go-to place, wood. And then there was a break where there's no wind, and I figured, oh, probably a little wind, risk maybe a bit lower. We had some other plans, so we didn't do it. But Saturday night, I was like, I'm lighting this wood up on fire. It's my last night on the island, and I thought, you know what? It's the provincial website said it's clear, it's all good, you can have a fire. I said, you know what? I'm going to be responsible and just check one last time. And sure enough, Charlottetown Fire sent out a notice a couple hours before saying, nope, full fire ban in effect. The kids were like, light the fire, dad, light the fire. You know,
Right.
the cottage neighbor was like, light the fire. And I was like, I'm not sure I want to be in the news as the guy who started a forest fire or any fire for that matter out there. So maybe to start off, maybe give us a lay of the land. What's going on with wildfire season, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, as we have all noticed in the news, it takes seriously just a cigarette butt on the side of the road or the smallest type of ember to actually start a massive destructive forest fire. Even here in mid-June, and I mean, this is the beginning of the summer in June. We had a forest fire start from most likely just somebody, a pedestrian walking by and not paying attention, and they lit something. And I mean, this starts as a really small spark, and within an hour, we were packing our bags. The entire city of Squamish here, or the town of Squamish, was on alert, and it takes absolutely nothing. So, good on you for being a responsible human and making sure that we understand that moving forward in society, there has been a massive shift. And the amount of humidity available in the forest is just not what it used to be. And every fire behavior scientist will tell you the same thing. Because of increased fuel loads, the beetles have killed a lot of trees out west, so meaning the trees are more susceptible to actual fire. And the fact that the lack of humidity in these summers just go on with extremely dry weather, and it means that we are really, really prone to destructive wildfires.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even out east, I think in Nova Scotia, not that I think I know, in Nova Scotia and more recently in New Brunswick, they were like no public in the woods. And even, on Crown land, forestry operations have halted. And I think to your point, you're like, it doesn't take much to set something off. And even myself, prior to being out east, the family tradition is we go out to Saskatchewan. And I was
Sure.
telling you earlier on that it's different when you're in a city. I'm based in Ottawa, where you have smoke blowing in. You're like, okay, kind of smell it. There's a difference when the fires or a set of fires are 30 kilometers away. When it is smack right in your face, and you're like, holy camoli, like this is next level stuff. And so, for our listeners who are probably wondering, why are these guys talking about fire and wildfire? Alex is the CEO, co-founder of FireSwarm Technology. So maybe introduce yourself, Alex, your own
Sure.
background, and then we'll dig into how this thing came to be. But maybe to start off, tell me about yourself, how you got to be where you are today.
Thank you. I'm an Ottawa guy myself. I grew up in on the Quebec side of the river. Went to school in Ottawa, and then graduated aerospace engineering in 2000 from Carleton University. Proud grad. And as I was also doing my undergrad, I was doing my commercial flying. I got into teaching people how to fly as a flight instructor. aviation has always been a huge part of my DNA. Before that, I was in air cadets and so on. So it's always been part of my life. And aviation is just such a fascinating just domain or career to be in because it is so broad. And as soon as I finished engineering, went into systems engineering for complex systems that are fitted on F-18 programs, on F-18 fighter jets, and also on 787 aircraft, and traveled the world implementing extremely complex system with the airlines to ensure that their aircraft fleet would be operational at all times. Fast forward to 25 years of a career in aerospace. In 2023, in August, our property in Gun Lake, amongst other 56 properties, were lost due to a wildfire. And this was the worst wildfire season in Canada so far. And we kept looking on video as our home was burning from across the lake. And something just sparked in me, pardon the pun, but it was just something needs to be done other than what is being done now. The status quo is not working. Having these massive multi-million dollar machines come in, scoop water, put water on the fires only in daytime conditions and only when the weather is favorable to visual flight rules, VFR flying. It may have been a really great resource to have decades ago, but we need more. We need immediate action as soon as the fire is started, meaning we need smaller units pre-positioned in order to attack fires when they start. It feels sometimes like we're trying to put a band-aid on a femoral bleed, if you excuse the emergency management parallel here, but we're not doing enough, and more can be done, especially with the technology we have today. So I got to thinking, okay, well, drone swarms are available in the military, and heavy lift drones are just coming around. And why are we not using this tech to fight wildfires before they get out of control? After asking many questions, the answers were unsatisfactory. So I brought a team together and we cautiously looked at how we were going to do this, if we were going to do this at all, and founded the company in September of 2023 after much research and deliberations. And now we have an amazing team and a really strong brand, and the technology is coming together.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll dig into that more on this podcast. So, wanted to maybe dig in a little bit more on
Sure.
the personal story. Like, so, yeah, yeah, yeah. I believe you and your partner, like, it's personal. Houses were lost that had been in the generation since the 1930s.
Yeah.
Now people are homeless. Tell me more about that because I think for some of us, maybe not even just urbanites, but people that are not close to these things, like when you describe watching the fire kind of through the webcams coming
Sure.
in and ultimately engulfing it, I can only imagine that, especially with that history, that was not an easy thing to watch unfold and being helpless and not being able to put anything in action, especially you as a search and rescue guy as well to add to the resume there. That's got to be weird sitting there watching this through a camera. Tell me more about that.
Certainly, as personally, it has always been in my DNA to find solutions to help people, whether it's through search and rescue or aviation. Keeping people safe is extremely important. And it's always been a really, really key when you see a problem, find a solution and execute. And when the fire in the Gun Lake area started in mid-July, it was started by a lightning strike in an area that was extremely difficult to get to, in mountainous terrain, in high fuel density, and firefighters would just not be able to effectively fight the fire on that type of steep terrain. Like, I mean, we're talking about alpine or subalpine terrain, which is extremely inaccessible. And this fire was being suppressed all day by water bombers, fire retardant tankers, and helicopters. And just the sheer amount of fuel available in the forest was allowing essentially the work done by the aircraft during the day to be undone at night because there was just simply no effective solution to put water on fires. So we saw the progression of the fire over a 6-week period move closer and closer to the community. And you could see by early August that we were in for an absolutely destructive, out of control fire. I mean, the firefighters would be able to put in massive guards to try and hold off the flames. But then the wind would kick up at 2 p.m. every day, and the embers would just jump the guard, and there was simply little that they could do but just watch in awe and then plan to put in a new guard. But the problem is with, as we all know, as soon as there's a wind event, as there is usually around 2 p.m. in the wilderness, um, the embers simply just light more fires, and we end up in a situation that's just becomes out of control because there's simply not enough humans and air assets available. So as we saw this happen, I really started digging into maybe I need to change my career here. I mean, I've been consulting for 25 years. What if, I were to start a company to address this problem because nobody seems to be doing anything about it.
All right. All
So
right.
here we are.
Yeah. So maybe
Yeah,
tell me more about that journey of starting this company. You're
sure.
a trained engineer, obviously dealing with, really, as you mentioned, complex systems in the aviation space, and I think for the layperson thinking about it, it's when you say complex, it's probably several degrees of order of magnitude more complex than we can even appreciate or think about. But tell me about that journey when you started digging in. Like, what were some of those surprises that when you did your research, you're like, holy cow, this is bonkers. And maybe what were some of those eureka moments there? But and then maybe connect them for me in terms of was there a moment where you're like, this just makes sense? It just all clicked together, or
Sure.
is it one of necessity where you're like, I just got to do this, like just based on my own experiences, the family experiences, given the state the world is going to. But maybe on those dimensions, share with us some of the tangible stories or experiences that you had leading up to this entrepreneurship journey.
So great question. Back in the day, when I first started my engineering career, I was actually part of a startup, and I spent 25 years of my career in the startup as it grew and grew and received, world recognition over time as a really great company to work with. I was one of the lead solution architects that grew with this company over my 25 years tenure, more or less. And I learned everything from coding to market research to what it is to be in front of the customer to make sure that we are hitting the points of that are really, really painful for the customers, to the point of then architecting not just the systems but how to implement these complex systems with companies that we were working with that had thousands of engineers and mechanics and pilots on staff. So to me, these massive problems that have everything from human resource to technical issues to data migration and regulatory framework, none of this is new to me. This has been my life. So when I looked at the problem and saw the absolute magnitude of the problem we were faced with here, it didn't really scare me because this was just another iteration of what I had done prior. So essentially, I looked at the problem and went in really cautiously thinking there has to be a reason why nobody has done this before. And the eureka moment was people that have tried to do this before tried to do everything from A to Z. They tried to build the drone, they tried to create the software, they tried to be the operators on the ground. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, that's why people have failed because they are trying to take too big of a chunk out of the problem. So instead, I had a number of interviews with potential customers that would actually want to purchase these machines from a company like a solution company that I created that would be able to then have the contract with the government agencies. So instead of us trying to have those contracts with government agencies, the problem is big enough for us to just be the solution company that provides products and services to our customers to allow them to have the contracts with the government agencies.
Right.
So from there, we started looking, okay, well, what is there any drone technology that could fit the requirement of being able to lift 350 to 400 kilograms at a time with a 1 to 2 hour endurance? I mean, the slice of the pie here is really small.
Yeah.
We actually found
Just one.
one, one drone OEM and manufacturer in Sweden that would allow a quadcopter to be dismantled in three pieces, fitted on the back of a Ford F450 for transport, and could be reassembled in the field in under 45 minutes.
Wow.
All run by a jet turbine with the ability for this machine to be automatically flown from takeoff to draw to pick up over the water, fly to a location, and automatic drop off. So that is the concept of operation that we are working on, and that is a concept that we are selling to our customers.
Amazing. Interesting. Interesting. So this is a heavy lift drone and it's not one of these little ones that we get from Best Buy by the sounds of it. If it's lifting however couple hundred kilos you said, which I think converts to what, 800, 850 pounds roughly in that
That's
range.
right.
So it is
Correct.
heavy lift there. Yeah. What was the feedback from people like when you started socializing this idea of, hey, Fireswarm Solutions, we're going to have product services, we're going to partner with people, here's some technology. Was it immediate buy-in from people going like, yeah, this is a great idea, Alex? Or was there some friction when we think about technology and in forestry? There's always maybe the early adopters, there's some of the laggards. What was your experience there as you started socializing this idea around?
So the with a number of interviews with Transport Canada, we sat with some the regulators multiple times before we even got going. We sat down with potential customers in the forestry space. We sat down with the Department of Defense, emergency management. We even pitched to the federal minister at the time of emergency management at the federal level. We discussed a number of times with BC Wildfire Innovations team, and we could see that there was a path forward. It was not going to be easy because we would be seen as an outsider with new technology, trying to disrupt the industry. But really, this is what I keep saying to helicopter operators, we are not going to be taking anybody's jobs away. The problem of wildfire is out of hand and it's getting worse. We just need more assets to put water on fires, especially at night. And that's why this technology is so needed. So we did get a little bit of pushback from helicopter operators, but most of them told us, well, Alex, we knew the solution would come at some point. So they are actually embracing the solution. We are working with helicopter operators to push this solution through. But the biggest uptick right now has been through forestry companies that have a need to fight wildfires, and they usually contract into, let's say, BC Wildfire. And to have this tool available on the back of a truck for equipment transfers or water pickups and drop offs, to transfer to a forward deployed pumpkin tank, let's say, and in time to actually pick up water from lakes and place it on active flames. This is all part of what they see the next phase of evolution of wildfire.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So maybe for our listeners and viewers, when we think about this heavy lift drone and the payload it's able to carry for 1 to 2 hours of flight time, when you mentioned the helicopter folks saying, "Hey, we have some concerns," can you compare for us? Like, do they
Sure.
lift the same amount? I'm assuming that copper helicopter is doing way more in terms of what it can actually do compared to one of these heavy lift drones. But can you maybe give us a comparison between what we're competing against in assets, helicopters, and planes?
Yep. So again, the I know it sounds like competition, but we're really just trying to do a comparison. So we're really comparing three heavy lift drones that are able to carry about, let's say, 300 to 350 kilograms each. We're comparing three machines to one intermediate size, the A-Star helicopter, which is a fairly well-known machine in wildland firefighting. So an A-Star helicopter can carry about 1,000 kilograms, and we can carry about 300 each. We add three together, and that is the comparison that we do. So from a cost of ownership, we're just slightly lower than an A-Star helicopter. And then obviously from an operating cost, we're much lower than the
Right,
A-Star
right.
helicopter.
I know in my mapping days, when I used to sit in the back of an airplane with a LiDAR sensor, there is always the IFR, VFR flight instrument or visual
Sure. Yeah.
flying. Wondering if you could explain that because I sense when you talk about nighttime and all assets being grounded, and on one side I'm thinking, well, visually you can't see anything. And then secondly, I'm like, do folks actually fly into this like craziness? And then the other side is like, well, could they use instruments to fly? I'm assuming there's a reason why these birds are not in the air at nighttime. Can you explain that for this guy?
Sure. So as an a pilot, I'll try to not get too into the weeds here, but just high level. Let's start with regulations around airspace because it's really important to understand. Airspace in Canada is classified from A through F, that we call it the alphabet soup of airspace. When there is a wildfire detected anywhere in Canada, there's an automatic Class F restriction around the perimeter of the fire from 10 kilometers away. So 10 kilometers away, you can draw a circle around that fire, and 3,000 feet above ground. That is the bubble that is restricted. So that restriction means that other pilots that are not allowed to fly in that restriction need to veer away, meaning that is why Transport Canada is so keen to have us succeed. Because unlike other heavy lift solutions out there that need to fly from an airport, come into a Class F airspace and attack the fire, we can drive these machines to within the Class F restriction. So once you're in the Class F restriction, then you, as a drone operator, you can fly VFR and also in very marginal VFR, so marginal weather conditions, including some smoke, as long as your jet engine does not get suffocated by the smoke, you can still fly in a bit of smoke. You can also fly in lower visibility than in a crewed helicopter because on a helicopter you are bound by what's called the visual flight rule restrictions, and there's certainly no instrument flight rule allowable in and around wildfire. That is just absolute suicidal, to be quite honest. So it is really a VFR only operation for helicopters, whereas drones, because of the sensors on board and the fact that no humans are on board, have restrictions that are slightly on the lower side. So you are able to fly in fairly adverse weather conditions and fairly safely at night as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that did kind of makes sense because even, driving back east, I think there's a fire in Moncton, New Brunswick that popped up, and then the news is like, yeah, nighttime's come. We've got to just let her shut things down and wait to daytime, which I've always thought you're losing time there. Like what? Like this thing's growing, it's a little monster. It's going to keep eating away. Like why are you giving it time? But you've just explained there's constraints based on current rules and regulations that prevents you from doing that.
One thing I did miss though, there are programs in place for pilots to operate specialized helicopters at night with night vision goggles. So those operations have started definitely, as you could see in the LA fires, they are quite popular in and around LA. And they have also started in Canada. Um, it's an opportunity that is being missed on most fires today because ground crews need to be specially certified. You need special equipment on board, and you need at least you need two pilots and perhaps even a third spotter, which all adds to costs and complexity and training and equipment. And what we're bringing to the table here is automated machines that are able to do that work in extremely high risk situations.
Right, right. That's amazing. Amazing. So when we think about technology, Alex, especially in the forestry space, and I guess it's forestry, forest science, like anything to do with forest, I suppose. Um, I always joke, there's some folks who don't want to be the guinea pigs, but they also don't want to be the last ones to the table. So the reason I say that sometimes the proof's in the pudding. And you've touched on partnering. I also suspect there's some competition. There's a couple competitions that FireSwarm Solutions has been involved with that I suspect provides credibility, if that's the right word, trustworthiness,
Yes.
proof of concept. What are some of those competitions you've been part of to date, and walk us through the journey on how you got into them and where you are today with them?
So back in 2023, when we were building the company, we heard just quite randomly, actually, about the X Prize competition for wildfire and the alignment with the mission for the X Prize wildfire competition and the solution that we were building and the timing of it was absolutely uncanny. We were literally building this company as the X Prize competition was starting to take in intake or proposals. So obviously, we got our grant writers and our technical team together. I think in terms of an opportunity cost, this may be worth the opportunity here to actually put our name in the hat. Fast forward 2 years. Well, actually, so yeah, I don't need to fast forward. So in 2023, we put in our name. There were 400 applicants worldwide. And the competition is actually quite basic in terms of its mandate. We're given a 35 kilometer by 35 kilometer grid. And within 10 minutes of a fire having been started in that grid, the fire needs to have been extinguished, suppressed, completely suppressed. That is the competition that we took a part in. And we saw, well, we are developing drone swarm software. We are partnering with the ACC Innovation heavy lift drone company. We're going to be installing our fire mission kit on that machine. There is no reason we cannot win this competition. So, sure enough, a few toll gates later, we just found out 2 months ago that we are in the semifinals.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. It's a huge deal for us. So we're the one of 15 teams to be in the semifinals and the only Canadian team. So we're very proud of our achievements so far. And our team was actually in Sweden 3 weeks ago, testing our software on the ACC Thunder Wasp, which is our flagship aircraft that we're working with. And the machine was able to work with those software to take off autonomously, pick up water from a pond, and put the water on a fire and do a number of return trips with mostly hands off. So the technology is working, and we are executing our X Prize semifinals in 3 weeks.
That's got to be exciting, like amazing to see the concept come to life in the field, operational. Obviously, there'll be like little things like tweak here or there, but to see your baby, I guess, come to life, it's got to be an amazing feeling.
It's pretty mind blowing to to hear back from the guys as they're coming in from Sweden saying, "Well, that went really well." And as an engineer, you're like, "It's obviously it's not going to go well the first time. There's always going to be an issue, communication failures, or something's going to happen." And some minor findings, but as they say in the industry, very nominal issues. And it was very, very, very smooth progression from us working with our smaller drones here in the Squamish Valley for the past year, making sure that they're able to pick up water, drop it off, and work in a swarm, essentially in the daisy chain, and then bringing our software to Sweden and seeing that we could integrate our software with the heavy lift drone within a matter of days.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
cool. Very,
it
very
was
cool.
it was a big deal.
And you said swarm a couple times. And so for our listeners and viewers, what does that specifically mean? And is there a limit on the number of UASs or drones that can participate in a swarm? Or is your vision, FireSwarm Solutions, and the aim that at some point in time there is no limit? You could have all these assets orchestrated together working one problem. What does swarm mean and how do you think about it? And are there challenges, maybe from an engineering technology point of view, of getting it to where you think it should be?
So swarming technology in the UAV or unmanned aerial space is quite well known. I mean, you've probably seen over Richmond or over Shanghai a number of thousands of small drones creating these beautiful 3D pictures in the sky. Those are what we call determinate swarms, as in, as long as you tell every machine to be at point XYZ at time T, you can start forming these beautiful images in the sky. What we're talking about from a swarming point of view to attack wildfire is more of an indeterminate problem, where we are needing our software to take in real time fire perimeter data and then to make decisions as to which points of the fire need to be addressed first based on downwind um, resources to be protected. So, this concept of indeterminate swarming is complex. It requires a level of AI that will make decisions to send the machines to go pick up water and drop them off, but also it allows for a level of automation that has never been seen before. So, to answer your question, there is no upper bound to the theoretical number of machines that could be controlled with our swarm algorithm.
Right.
There is obviously a logistical limit at some point that you will run out of forestry roads in which these machines can be deployed to actually operate. But whether you're talking about a swarm that is essentially bringing water from a lake to a flank of the fire, or a daisy chain of machines that are working in a circuit, that is all swarming type of technology, which requires a number of pieces of hardware that are installed on the machine. Also, it requires the software that we're building on the ground station.
Right, right. Very interesting, very interesting. So it's more than just things working together. You mentioned AI, so it's more about, being able to respond to real-time conditions as they unfold and adjusting versus having a human maybe bottleneck in terms of trying to figure what's happening in a command center. So very, very interesting from that point of view. Now, in technology, as I kind of touched on, we joked about, adoption can be slow and fast on some things. So when we think about AI, it's the hot button topic or maybe buzzword, depending which camp you are. How is the reception been in the communities, the audiences that you speak into? Have they largely accepted it, or is it Terminator, Skyline coming over to Skynet taking over the world? Or are they okay with the idea?
So let's talk about our regulator first, Transport Canada, which regulates or creates the aviation regulations for the flight of these machines, including aircraft. So the portfolio of Transport Canada is absolutely massive, and they know that drones are arriving in Canadian airspace, and we are working in lockstep with our regulator to make sure that we are using a crawl, walk, run, fly approach, meaning it will not. We're not saying Skynet is going to take over the skies around a wildfire anytime soon. It has to be in a test environment, which we started our test environments in the city of Kelowna with the fire department. Imagine 20 firefighters, 5 Transport Canada inspectors. The RCMP was there to just watch our smaller drones pick up small amounts of water and take that water from A to B, and then at some point have one of the drones in the swarm veer off and actually put water on a fire. So that was the first test that was open to, well, a fairly private event, but still with the City of Kelowna Fire Department and officials in that area. So, long story short, we are really at the still crawl portion of the crawl walk run. The heavy lift drone itself is arriving in Canada later this fall, where we will have other closed session tests with actually with TBD right now. Yeah, it depends on exactly how things work out. But let's just say once that test is done, then we are having further tests with Alberta wildfire later on in the spring, other tests with BC wildfire, hopefully in the spring as well. And as we then start to expand the scope, we'll be able to see how these machines will be incorporated in smaller fire events first to see how these machines can be brought to light and then increase the level of complexity over time, all the while proving how these machines are safe and effective tools to actually douse the flames in nighttime suppression.
Right, right. And I suspect everyone's yelling, "Come on, Alex, let's go. We gotta go now." But I also can hear the engineer in you of saying, "Hey, we're gonna got steps here we gotta go through. We gotta check the boxes before we go for launch, right? Or else we're gonna
Correct.
have an outcome that we no bueno isn't gonna be a good thing."
Exactly.
So very,
Exactly.
very cool to think about that. Now, the other thing you've touched on, Alex, is partnering, not trying to own everything and anything. So maybe tell me about some of the partnerships that you've established to date and where you see them going. What are the ones you have now? What are their function? And are there some that still need to be set up into the future to get to that finish line?
So there's two parallel tracks here that we're following. One is obviously the wildfire track that we've talked about for a little bit here. The other one is the military logistics. So on the military logistics side, we are partnering with Kongsberg Geospatial, which is a very well-known defense contractor that brings in situational awareness tools for the Canadian forces. So we are partnering with Kongsberg, also a very well-known drone operator in Ear Falls, Ontario, who is one of our launch customers. So things are going very, very well on the defense side. On the wildfire side, things are also going very well. We have letters of support from BC Wildfire. We're working on one for Alberta Wildfire. We're partnering with Strategic National Resource Group based in Prince George. They see the future of what we're bringing. They want to be the launch customer in wildfire. So we are really proud to be working with Domenico and SNRG and their team. And we have weekly discussions that are not easy because we're trying to figure out how we deliver the business, services and products. And they are trying to figure out how they will be able to get contracts to find a way to fund the use of these machines. So we are at the bleeding edge of technology here, and it takes some really forward-looking partners. And we're lucky
Yeah.
that we are not trying to solve a problem that's uh, crazy or ephemeral. Like this is, we are wanting to put water on fires using drones that can fit on the back of a truck.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the pitch, right? What do you do? This is what we do. It's as simple as that, but it's probably one of the most complex things to get solved and running there. So
So actually, for just on a little side note on that,
yeah.
the reason that our team is working so incredibly well together, so we have 4 employees and 12 contractors that come in and out and throttling them based on the needs really. The reason the company is working so well as a entirely remote company is that the mission is super crystal clear, and we have not deviated from the mission at all. One is wildfire, and the other one is emergency management and logistics transport through D&D and emergency management. So those two paths literally are that is the railroad that we're on,
Yep.
and they're both uh, going along at the same pace, and our head of product is very happy to see that the problems that we're solving for wildfire, taking water from A to B, are very equivalent to the problems of taking pallets of goods from A to B in emergency management.
Right.
Long story short, it happens a lot in companies that there's so much sway from direction, and they call it pivoting, and it can be quite the nightmare scenario for a lot of founders and employees. And we've been able to really just pick a lane and remain that solution provider and ensure that our customers are successful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as they say, focus, 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 and where you're able to do that, you generally come out on the good side. Now, you mentioned maybe on the technical side, 2 hours flight time, launched from a truck. So for refueling, like, is this just like jerry can of gas and pour it in, and you're off to the races? Very little downtime versus like a battery type of
Sure.
solution.
Yeah, as we all know, batteries that would allow the transport of 300 plus kilograms would require to be absolutely massive. Plus, as we know, there's a 40-to-1 ratio between the energy density between jet fuel and a battery. And batteries, I'm not going to yeah, I won't be too negative here, but batteries are still at their infancy in terms of stability of the actual units, and a thermal runaway, especially with that amount of energy, is not something I really want to contemplate. As in, imagine a truck, a flatbed, doesn't have to be a Ford F-450. On the back of the flatbed is a box. The box is 12 feet long, 7 feet wide, and has legs that deploy to the side of the truck, able to lift the box off the flat deck. Truck drives away. The box comes down to the ground, opens up like a clamshell, which is literally your landing zone at this point. And this landing zone has your drone inside of it in three pieces. The drone is assembled and filled with jet fuel, Jet A, and 45 minutes later to an hour, it is ready to be launched.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, this guy's crazy brain. I was like, why do we need a 450? It's like, can't you, you're an aviation guy, can't we throw these things out of an aircraft? Again, this is
Yeah, I've
like,
heard that before.
right? Paragraph, parachute lands, it does its
Sure.
transformer thing, and there you go. You have
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah.
Autobot here to fight the Decepticons, and off it goes. And you can refuel these fighter jets in the air with a big thing. Like, seems like there's so much possibility, but this is how this guy's brain works in
No,
terms
no,
of
it's good. I
crazy.
like where you're going. We that definitely part of the crawl, walk, run, fly. You're definitely in the fly.
Yes.
Definitely in the fly. This is the future of where we're going. Absolutely. I've heard these. We've had these discussions before, and they're fun to ideate on.
Yeah.
But I'm telling my guys, okay, right now we just need this machine to be effective at one thing.
Yeah. We just needed
And
to
then
work
in
on this
time,
one thing. Yeah.
I tell me there's no end of how we can fill a roadmap with functionality.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the time we have, maybe I'll draw you into the future and see what that looks like. Because on one side, I think back to a Society of American Foresters event many moons ago, and there's a gentleman who was describing, the forester of the future, and he had this truck, and it had a drone and had all this technology, and the forester came out with this tablet, was kind of on his chest, just folded it down. In some respects, again, from my defense days, I think of, that operator in the field with the right kit, but that forester would basically show up on site and then launch the tools he or she needs, and off you go. Doesn't sound too far, maybe a bigger truck in a 450, but it doesn't sound too far in terms of how you were thinking in that context. But when we look to the future, and I was to pull you into the future, what's that ideal state look like? FireSwarm Solutions is a success. doing everything. We're in the crazy ideation. What does that world like for you as Alex
Sure.
Deslauriers? Like what could it look like beyond where we are today?
In my utopic vision of where we will be in X number of years, is there will be one machine, one Thunder Wasp machine available with our software loaded on it, pre-positioned at every First Nation, at every municipal fire station where these machines, and also at every military base, every reserve base out in the country, everywhere where there's a drone operator that is able to be dispatched at a moment's notice to drive this machine to where it needs to be, have the ability to deploy the machine, essentially to assemble the machine on site, and then through satellite link says the machine is now ready for deployment. And there's a central station where a group of humans will be able to say, okay, I can see that this machine is now available for service. I can see where the fire is, and I am launching this machine all remotely. So there is a future where these machines are pre-positioned across Canada, across the US, and then in low fire season, they're all shipped to Chile, Argentina, South Africa, Australia, where they continue their work, and then they are shipped back to North America because these are pricey machines and they need to work 24/7 and as much as they can throughout the year. But that is the level of automation that will be available in the years to come, that these machines will be deployed as soon as there's a fire that's detected. And with the technology that's currently available today through satellite and high altitude drones, we're able to detect fires really, really early in their incipient stage, which is where we need these machines to operate. We can't have these machines operating over rank six wildfires that have fire tornadoes. They're just simply not going to survive. But these machines need to be available at night and in the incipient stage of the wildfire.
Yeah, yeah, very, very cool. On one side, I'm like, when's this gonna come? Like, we need this yesterday, especially even
Yesterday.
going what we see in Canada, yet alone in other jurisdictions. So very, very, very cool. And maybe at some point you can have autonomous trucks going out. You don't even need the human to drive it out, but
Sure. Sure.
that'll be into the future, right? Lots to do there. And so when we think about where you are today and your career, as you said, you've been doing stuff, very specialized stuff, complex stuff for 25 years. And we think about the listeners and viewers of this podcast, the range is a mix. And so we think about people with ideas, dreams, aspirations, whatever we want to call it. What's Alex's pro tips to them? Because you're tackling this monster of a problem, global problem. I'm in the camp that it's just going to get worse. I always tell people, I don't care what your climate beliefs are, you're going to feel it in the wallet. And I swear in the last 2 years alone, 3 years, something's changed. Like I did my complex systems theory classes. We know there's a S curve with a tipping point that the average person thinks, it could gradually come about, but complex systems theory says, no, that's not the case. You hit that tipping
Right.
point and it's literally a flip into this
Right.
worst
Yep.
case extreme, which I don't think people appreciate. How do you get ahead of that? But thinking of people who are thought leaders, creatives, and thinking about real solutions for these types of problems. What's your pro tip to them in terms of how to get that idea from the chalkboard, if you will, into action? Sounds like you're taking a very thoughtful, coordinated, engineer-centric approach based on doing this in other spaces that are much more complex. But what are some pro tips you would give to our listeners and viewers?
The type of problem that we are solving as a team is so incredibly complex, from regulations to technology that we just talked about, that it takes more than just waking up one day and saying, oh, this seems like an interesting problem. Because if that was the only motivation factor for me, I would have given up a long time ago. I mean, we haven't talked about fundraising, but that is an entire spiritual journey of itself. And I tell you, I look forward to never having to go through again. So, all of the energy, life energy that you need to put in front of the screen day in, day out, literally thinking about this 24/7 requires passion, requires passion for solving the problem at hand. So, if there's one thing to listeners is make sure you listen to cues in life that will provide you a passion for solving a problem. Because if you're trying to solve a problem just to make money, you're not going to succeed. You are, unless money is your ultimate value, but that's quite rare, I think, for a lot of people. To have true passion, to know that you are bringing something positive to the world, you need and true grit, right? Just to get to the day in, day out of the thousands of no's that I've received for the very few yeses. It and then at some point, just trust that if you keep your ears open to the feedback, and you don't have an ego-based bias against what you want people to tell you, you will find a way through the labyrinth that is entrepreneurship.
Amazing, amazing. That's so well said, to be honest with you. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So maybe the last question for me is that this story is obviously personal to you and your partner. But having said that, both of you work on this. Again, small team, you said couple employees with contractors. But what you just described, the passion's there, the fire in the belly, you're going at it. How has that changed the family, the relationships at play? Have they made them stronger? Have they made them different? Um, Tell me more
Sure.
about that. I'm just curious.
I mean, the whole concept. I mean, there's the personal journey. There's also the family journey. Obviously, so Melanie Bittner is my co-founder and my wife, and we are working literally 24/7. One of the main reasons why things are going extremely well is because we are always in communication about this. So things have changed a little bit, but on that. But let's just say there's never a dull moment, and it's amazing just to be working with your partner on this.
Yeah. Cool.
They, from the kids' point of view, they see what we're doing. They thought it was a fun idea to begin with a couple of years ago, and now they see that we're having, FaceTime with the Minister of Military Procurement, and we're having FaceTime with federal ministers. I'll be in Ottawa in a few weeks. It's just there's a lot happening, and they kind of look at us going, "Wow, okay, this is how you build a business, huh?" Takes a lot. So that's great. And also, from a personal point of view, um, I was so deadly afraid of public speaking when I was a kid. And the initial conversation with ministers 2 years ago were extremely scary, where now I can have these conversations and be so sure of what we're doing because of the feedback that we're getting, not feeling like an imposter at all.
Yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. And of course, with your kids, you just have to tell them you're on a podcast now. And then because they're younger, they're going to be like, that is so Riz, Dad. You have plus
Hooray!
1,000 aura, right? What the Sigma? There you go. For some of us, right away, I could tell what age group our kids are since
That's
we
great.
actually start laughing at that.
Yeah.
Well, as we look to wind down, this amazing conversation, I feel like I could talk to you forever and trade stories. But for those folks out there that who want to follow up, as we know in the entrepreneurship world, especially people who are blazing trails, we are our best supporters. We're happy to support each other where we can. What's the best way for folks who want to follow up, either to learn more about FireSwarm Solutions, what you're doing there, whether it's the swarming software, the partnership approach, how you're tackling this complex problem? If folks want to reach you, what's the best way to reach Alex Deslauriers?
Definitely reach out via our newsletter or via our email ability through our website, fireswarmsolutions.com. Please sign up to our newsletter to see what's going on. There's a lot of really fascinating updates coming up.
Yeah.
And as well, follow us on social. We have our LinkedIn profile, which is extremely active, and all the other normal social media outlets out there exists. And thank God we have our amazing CMO that is making sure that we are on all platforms and we're making a lot of waves.
Amazing, amazing. So there you go, folks. If you want to get in touch with Alex, FireSwarm Solutions, social media, the usual channels, or website, check them out, reach out, have some conversations. Amazing stuff. So on that note, that wraps things up. I really appreciate your time. Obviously, it's busy fire season. You guys got lots of work cut out for you in the short term, and I suspect medium term and long term. But really appreciate you joining me on this podcast, and looking forward to, if you ever do a little beta thing, like feel free to invite this guy,
Yeah,
be to
that's great,
come
Kevin.
out with my GoPros and chat and do some cool stuff in the new age here. But really appreciate your time, and looking forward to chatting more with you in the future.
Thank you, Kevin. It was a
Awesome.
pleasure.
Great stuff.